All right, we'll call it to order at 7 o'clock even. And let me quickly go over the board norms. Try to maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. I just want to kind of talk a little bit about something that we started at our last long-term planning meeting, which we will continue to do with maybe some minor tweaks. But we, as you may notice on the agenda, we have a section now called public comment. Tonight's slated for half an hour. What we'll try to do is have the information that the board will hear have gone through, and then you have the ability to comment after that. One additional tweak I'll make today is I believe we may have some new business items. What I could say we can do is we could tack on an additional 5 minutes to each of those new business items for public comment afterwards, so we have specific comments about any additional topics that come up. So, sound good? A little tweak from last time. We heard you out there, so appreciate it. Speaking of, so any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we.
No, it's up to you.
No.
No, you're good. Okay. Joe? Oh, I see your hand, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can have a quick electric bus update as time is getting short on that. Mike is here, and he's been dealing directly with the providers. So if we could slot in a little bit of time for that.
Perfect. Okay, we'll call that 3A under new business, so electric bus update. Okay. Any other changes, updates?
Are we gonna talk about the after-school program? Discuss it?
Ken, if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do
Let's discuss it.
All right, there we go. 3B, do the after-school discussion, program discussion. Okay, great. Anything else? No? All right, seeing none. So first up, we do have some correspondence, and do we have, we have some admissions. Do we have Nathan or Aaron? Hello. Sorry about that. Right in front of me. Hello, Aaron. Is there anything in addition to what you already expressed in the letter that you wanted to talk about? And just to preface that, if it's private and we need to bring it to executive session, we certainly can.
I think any of it's private. I mean, it's, I think, you know, a little bit more background. It was hard to kind of put it all into one request. Since Kylie, which I can talk about her, because, yes, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Since she was in Wyndham, she did excel in school and she moved up grades. Often she's ahead of everybody, and other learning for her that's, I just guess I don't know how to word it correctly, that more beneficial to her in another setting might be best for her. Here with the issues where she had bullying, she was afraid to come to school. And then she was also not academically challenged here, which I repeatedly talked to her teachers during parent-teacher conference, and they agreed. And this even goes back to elementary school, where she was always ahead, she was always excelling. But then especially with the bullying and issues, she just really was afraid to come back to school. And she would really like a different start, and she would like to do more arts and programs of just things that she feels that aren't offered for her peer. I'm here for her, not for our things. I think Leland Gray is fine, but she wants more, so I'm going to advocate for her. Okay.
As any good parent would, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bob, I believe, probably in response, will want to speak about some things, or you want to speak about some things that we would need an executive session for. Be correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that I could let you guys know a little bit about the behavior that she's describing was happening to her daughter. I would love the opportunity to talk about that with you guys, but obviously, because of the nature of it involving other students, I can't do that in a public session. So, yeah, if you guys are up for it, I'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about that and give you a little bit of background.
Okay, thanks, Bob. So, Aaron, what we'll do is we'll discuss in executive session, and then what we'll do is we'll come out, I think as Phil had outlined, several different choices that we can make coming out of the executive session. I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing it. All right. Moving to old business. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of July 13th, 2022.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 13, 2022.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks. Any discussion? Did we get all the names right this time?
Yeah.
And everything else?
The sound is really not good. I'll need to have people identified.
Dana West made the motion to approve the minutes.
Mike Foley seconded.
Peter, how's that? Is that any better?
I can't really tell, but I think so.
Okay. We do have fans running in here, so that could be
Yeah, it's actually
interfering.
hard to hear you.
Do you want me to kill the AC?
Even for me, it's
Yeah.
hard to hear you guys out here.
Yeah, maybe. Sure. All right. Sorry about that. Hold on for 1 sec. We're gonna stop the AC.
What's happening is that the loud parts are very loud and the soft parts are silent. So it's just cutting off quieter parts of what you say.
Okay. Wow, that is a reduction in noise. Is that any better?
Well, it's, there has to be some sound before I can tell.
I was giving you sound. All right. We'll see how it goes. Principals reports. Scotty, you want to start?
Sure. I am very, well, first I was telling a select number of people right before the meeting. Our facilities director, Greg Frost, was there the morning when my school flooded, and it was a really horrific thing. I mean, I walked in on a Sunday morning with 3 weeks left of school, and there was 1.5 inches of water on the floor. And I've had things like that happen at my house, so I'm aware of what timelines can be like and things like that. And Greg came straight. I think he was at church. He came straight from church. He got some friends to come with him, and we ripped out all the floor, all of the carpeting, so that so the moisture wouldn't go up the walls. We toughed it out through the last few weeks of school, and now with an insurance settlement, we've recarpeted the school. It looks beautiful, and on top of that, because we were recarpeting, while we had the carpet out, Greg came in with a couple of people and painted the hallways and put in these LED lights. So our literally, when you walk through our building now, Lindsay, it's literally startling. Miss Brandley came to school today and she saw it and she was struck. The library looks beautiful. We have got 3 different types of carpet in there, like an accent color, and it just looks beautiful. The kids are gonna love it. The staff are gonna really be very pleased, I'm sure. So that's exciting. I had some hiring to do this year, and this year is not a good year for hiring. I'm sure you're all aware. I am the luckiest person on the planet, and I hired 2 amazing classroom teachers, one first grade teacher and one second grade teacher. They've both been at school over the summer, getting ready and getting things going, and when you see those classrooms, you will see their philosophies just in the way they've set up, which is exactly what you would expect out of a mid-career teacher, but I feel so lucky. We also hired Carrie Toll, who is our full-time counselor. She'll be counseling. She's really 50-50. She's 50% working with the Learning Center at Newbrook, and then 50% with the general population. But what it's going to mean to the operation of the school is that there's going to be like a number 2 that's built in. So I'm not going to have to worry about lead teachers. I'm not going to have to worry about a second person on the crisis team in case I'm not there. And there's going to be some really nice kind of cross-coverage duties and things like that. What else am I excited about? We also hired another para for the TLC. We had some staff move out of town. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of schools still have like 2 or 3 classroom teachers that they don't have people in place. And I had a resignation, and what's happening is kind of like what is it called? Hot potato. Where one person finds a job over here and there's a vacancy, and then somebody jumps at that and there's a vacancy, and so I was trying not to get caught at the end of that. So, and I really lucked out, and we've got great staff, so I'm just so excited. We're still looking for one school nurse in the district, and we're looking for I think a couple of paras, one at the high school, and so if you know of anyone like that. We're also looking to staff our after-school program with a coordinator, which is a really nice job. It's their design is really good. I really love what they've done with this design. They've got a 2 to 6 position, which is a real job for somebody, especially somebody who has kids in the district. And it's Monday through Friday, which is going to be a really nice offering. My families have been asking for that since I've been there. Yes, Lindsay, you know well. And what it's going to mean to people is that they're going to be able to count on that as a service of the school, which I really appreciate that from you all, that is a priority, because I know it is for my families. I'm really excited about the training. You don't need to hear all about it, but I did a pretty significant professional development myself this summer through the VPA, the Waddington training. It's called. It's the I was in cohort number 12, and I went down. It was all paid for by the Waddington Foundation, and it's available to any principal in the state. And a lot of my colleagues have done it and really loved it. Bob loved it. Bill loved it. And so what I did was I did a 360 eval, and I think I sent a lot of you guys. I got feedback from you guys. I got feedback from families, from 4th and 5th graders, from my teachers. And then I went down with all of that stuff, and I also did like psychological assessments of me. And so with all that stuff, I sit down with the job coach, and I just had my second meeting with her a couple days ago. And I've realized really where I want to focus and what I want to be doing. And my big push this year is going to be around mentoring and about really ongoing meeting with staff, and really making sure that everybody is really feeling energized by work and being challenged but not overwhelmed, and that we're doing all that kind of work. So I'm very excited about the school year. I'm very excited to be starting what looks like might be a normal school year. So those are the things I'm excited about. We did a couple of different reports for you. If you have any questions, you can ask me now, of course, or you can email me. I would love any of the board. I really would love you guys to come visit. If you see my ugly green car in front of the school, that means you should come in. I'm there all the time, so it's only 11 minutes from my house. So please visit. I really would love you to see Greg and Pat's excellent work. It's really, truly startling. It makes the hallway seem like 2 feet wider. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions for Scott?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I'll let everyone else talk first.
All right.
We'll do the other
All
reports.
right. Sounds good. All right, go ahead, Bob. If you're out there. Yes.
All right, hey guys. I'm just enjoying a nice meal here during the board meeting. My 10-year-old gave me table service with a menu, and she's made me a nice salad, which I'm eating now, and it's fantastic. So yeah, I think as you guys walk through the building on your way out of the meeting, you can see that we're still a lot going on there, but the guys are working their tails off, and all the bathrooms are going to be retiled and new fixtures and new stalls, the whole 9 yards. So, but it's not ready yet. Maybe the September meeting you guys can do a little tour and check some stuff out, but it's come along really well. The one thing that I definitely wanted to bring attention to, other than what's in my report, is that as you guys have done recently, we've had 2 student board members, one who's a member of the senior class and one who's a member of the junior class. So I put out the word this year to get junior to join for this coming year, and my dogs are fighting behind me. This is awesome. Hey. And I did get one reply from a young Hazelton who would like to join the board. Is the only response I received from members of the junior class. So his name I would like to pass forward to you guys for joining on the September meeting. And I think Ruthie, I see Ruthie on the call here as well. Ruthie is going to be the senior member of the board, but just to highlight a little unusual thing, Ruthie's going to be doing, I think, she's been accepted anyways, into early college. And the weird thing about early college is that early college, the way they ensure that we don't get money, that CCV gets free for her, is that they unenroll the students. So we lose that ADM on students who are in early college because the money goes to CCV, which makes sense. They're the ones providing the education. But because she's unenrolled, I just wanted you guys to know that my hope is that she would still serve on the board. Early college students are still allowed to be participants in schools' extracurricular activities, sports teams, and the like. So she can participate in all the normal school events, despite the fact that she is unenrolled, quote unquote, for the year to do early college. It is my hope, and I hope you guys would be okay with this, that we continue to allow her to stay on the board for her senior year, despite that. And again, I don't know if she's been accepted. I don't know if she's firmly committed or where she is in the decision tree, but I just wanted you guys to know if that was a distinct possibility. Those are the 2 members for this coming school year that I wanted you guys to be aware of, and see if there's any questions or concerns about either adding another Hazelton. I know they could be a challenge with Hazeltons. Or having a student who's technically unenrolled. But so anyways, I totally think I support both of them being on the board and want to continue having them. So that was really the only new thing I wanted to just bring up that wasn't in the report, but I'm happy to take any questions from anything else.
Lindsay?
We have one more Renee's here for Townsend, so.
Oh, good. I
we
am
got
so
Monica.
sorry.
Oh, is Monica
Renee.
there?
Monica as well.
Oh, she's behind the camera, that's the one I can't see.
I apologize, Renee. Please go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, first principal report here, so bear with me. I guess, yeah, I'll just sort of reiterate what Bob and Scotty said. Our building is looking amazing. We have new carpet in our pre-K rooms, in the office, in the nurse's office, fresh paint on the walls and on the doors. It's really makes a huge difference. So Billy and Greg have been really working hard at that all of the summer, really. It's been a little difficult to get in the building, but will totally be worth it, I'm sure. We had our pre-K teacher resigned and ended up moving back with family at the end of the year, pretty late in the year. So our first grade teacher moved down to pre-K, and then I panicked because I needed a classroom teacher, first grade. And 3rd time's a charm. We found someone. She's going to be great. She's working towards her elementary ed master's, but has a lot of behavioral experience with one-on-one para work in multiple states. So we're really excited to welcome Edna. And coming up on the 24th after opening day, we have teachers leading a PBIS staff refresher training to update new staff, just so we all ensure that we're on the same page, teaching our students and our teachers what our expectations are at school, and just, informing everybody of the way we've done things and how we're improving on that too, which also ties back into some of our PBIS goals. Last thing, I can't even tell you how many hours I spent working on the school schedule. but I think I came up with a really great schedule that causes less overlap for subjects happening at different times, so that we can ensure that there's more support staff to get the students that have the needs and put them in similar groups so we can target what they need even more. I think that is about it.
All right. Thanks, Renee.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Monica.
Hi, thank you for having me. So for Jamaica Village School, I'm proud to report that Greg Soshin has done a wonderful job with our floors. They look very shiny. We have 2 classrooms, so one K through 2 and one 3 through 5. So that allows me to use the other classrooms right now for other means. And one classroom is the library, so that's nice and bright. Another classroom will be a music, art, and yoga studio. And then another area that we had free is actually going to be a small theater. So we have a puppet show theater set up, and we'll have a stage, and so we will be able to do our performances in that room with an audience. We have one new teacher. Her name is Christina Roberts, and she goes by Tina, and she is just so bright and just so joyful, and she's going to fit right in. She already almost has her classroom all set up, and she is just ready to go. She is very eager, and I'm excited to work with her. As for our whole school focus this year, our theme is JVS is Green. So we will...
Lost something.
We lost you, Monica. Audio.
Froze.
And she's froze.
Oh, she is.
Or she's very still.
full climate learning place where we also work with the community. So we're really working towards building our relationships around the whole community and learning about what we can do to make a difference in our world. So that's it. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. All right. Any questions, comments? Come on, Lizzie. Jump at the bit.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the feedback we got regarding high quality instruction from all of our administrators. I really appreciate what everyone put into that, but I had some questions. I know we obviously have been doing this long-term planning process for quite a while, and I think if there's one thing that, biggest thing that we can walk away from with that whole process would be hearing from the community that they feel we are not doing enough. And I don't think there's any other way to put that, right? So that being said, I was hoping that each of our administrators could talk for a minute about what things they personally feel in their buildings should be better. And then also what specific action steps they can take or are taking to improve on those points. That being said, I'm hopeful that we will hear some things that aren't like, well, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing because we've been told it's not working. So that being said, I was just hoping that everybody could start with that. Whoever wants to go first.
I'm happy to go first. That's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I can do what you just asked. I guess I would just say that just because you've been doing something doesn't mean that it's not working. Sometimes it takes time to get initiatives moving, and sometimes it takes, especially when you've had a pandemic in the middle of it, it can feel like nothing's changing. But just so you guys are aware, and I think you are, that we've spent the last 3 years dealing with logistical things about, up until this spring, really for 2 solid years, dealing with masking and, distancing and how to figure out how to fit kids in a lunchroom and all things, the changing stuff from the state for 2+ years consumed us. So we weren't your educational leaders during that time. We were your managers, safety managers, hospital administrators, whatever you want to call us. We were in charge of morale for staff and for kids. And it really, duct tape, baling twine, and, you know, a little bit of luck to just get us through the years. So I just want to preface that part of it, because I think that, like for example, for Leland and Gray, so we started doing a lot of the work that we started 6 years ago, where we began to envision what Leland and Gray could look like and how we could become, the model of a small school in the state of Vermont. That was the focus of our initial design thinking exercise that we did my first year. That led us to a series of pilots of the different types of things, which led us to a PBL, or project-based learning academy, which then ended when COVID happened, and then but we, coming out of COVID, as I said in my descriptor, like we wanted to focus on engagement of kids, because kids were so disengaged in that process, and the struggles of how to reconnect them. And this gives me an opportunity to kind of say a little bit about the letter that the long-term planning got last week. The idea that project-based learning, that there was a choice between project-based learning and rigor, is the furthest thing from the truth. Those two things are actually, they project-based learning increases rigor. It's not in lieu of it. So the work that we did in the previous years before COVID on our proficiency-based graduation requirements was really selecting the curriculum. Really, it's going through the standards and highlighting what areas of the curriculum we need to focus on. And then to take that and morph it into now, what's the delivery method for that? And that's the project-based learning approach. And then even this coming year, we're doing it on these Wednesdays, and we have these 24 sessions. I think there are 100 minutes each of project-based learning that are integrated cross-disciplinary things that are going to happen 6 through 12. That's still like a step. The next step from there is to integrate those things into our regular teaching, and to have, and a lot of teachers already do that, of course. Some were doing it before, but to be able to integrate that pedagogy into the everyday teaching and instruction. So for me, yes, that needs to continue to work, and we need to continue to get better at it. But we've been doing it, so it sounds like, well, it must not be working because our results aren't there. But that's why I just wanted to sort of start with that. It doesn't always mean that, you know what I mean? So that's the work that we have been doing, we'll continue to do. And I really believe that's the key to us moving the needle, Leland and Gray, because it allows us to personalize. One of the things I just heard from the parent in the audience was that the student didn't feel like they were challenged. Well, if you have a highly personalized educational setting, then there's nothing limiting the students' access to rigor. They can continue to do their own thing. It's personalized. So that's the next step for us, is getting to that piece. And I feel like we would have been much closer if it hadn't been for COVID. But we're saddling up again, and we're continuing to move in that direction. So I don't know if that answers your question. I guess instruction is the thing that we're all focused on that needs to continue to improve. It's not like it's one thing. We're like, hey, we should start working on instruction. We've been working on it, and we're continuing to make it better. And for us, it's the PBL approach that's doing it. And the elementaries have very different approaches around literacy, I think, that they can talk about, that the teachers have been trained in for the last couple of years. But I don't know, does that answer what you were looking for from me?
It does. I would, specifically for you, I would like to ask also about, I actually looked it up because I know we had talked about it. It actually is in our actual board values that we specifically delineate personalized learning plans for grades 6 through 12. Having had a 6th grader, personally, I didn't see the outcome of that. And I'm wondering, where is that? How is it going? Are we getting closer? What are we doing to get closer? When do we see that happen?
Yeah, so initially, you guys heard Terry's presentation a month ago about all the different things that her job entails. Initially, the thought was that she would be managing personalized learning plans. And the reality of that is it just wasn't possible. All the other things, that as different things continue to grow, the work-based learning and the dual enrollment stuff, She just wasn't able to really put that on her plate. So we have not found a system yet to really implement that with fidelity. So if you're looking for something that we need to do that we haven't done, that certainly is one of those things, for sure. And that can move the needle as well, because it can create those more visible opportunities for the kids to see, like, hey, how do I get from A to B? It gives the opportunities for the parents to engage in the process as well. How do I help my kid get there? And then, then the school obviously is a partner there too. Is like, what options do we have that the kid can access to help them in that journey too? So yeah, that would be the one thing that we absolutely haven't done, that we need to. But I put that off intentionally, focusing instead on the instruction and the curriculum, because I felt those were higher leverage items when I first came to Leland and Gray. So it was an intentional thing. Once we realized Terry couldn't manage it.
But it's still on your radar?
Oh yeah, Dana, our new assistant principal, who I was hoping would be here, and I forgot to remind him, so he's probably not on the call, but he comes from Bells Falls Middle School, where they did a lot of personalized learning plans in the middle school, and so he has a very high vested interest in seeing what we're going to do with that, and so I think it's going to help us move that forward.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, absolutely.
And did you want to hear from
I mean, I would love to hear if anybody else has things they would like to add. I would love to
speak about it.
That's good.
First of all, I really appreciate, this really went right along with the personal learning that I'm doing right now, my own professional development. And I've been working on a lot of these things just in terms of how am I going to plan my weeks in order to make all these things happen, and when are these meetings happening and things like that. So I appreciated this. I appreciated this challenge because it really did fit in with what I've been doing. So I'm not going to speak for all the elementaries, but I think that some of these things might be repetitious because we do work as a team, and our curriculum coordinator, Jen McCusick, has really led a lot of these charges. Looking at our data with our academic support team, and then creating professional development opportunities for our staff based around what we perceive as the outcomes that we want to have change. This year we're doing 5 PD days throughout the year where the teachers are going to be really focused on their literacy block and planning a literacy block. And I'm going to talk really briefly about these blocks of time, because in our elementary schools we ask the teachers to create a hour-and-a-half block, 90 minutes for ELA and 60 minutes for math. And but one thing that hasn't been happening as well as it could is that we haven't all been using a menu structure during that time. So if you already know what I'm talking about, then let me just go through this for a sec. What a menu structure does is it allows the teacher to come in, the kids do a right now or a opening activity at their desks, get settled in. They might have come in from recess, or they might have just come in for the morning. And then the teacher teaches a mini lesson, which could be 20 minutes or a half hour, where it's a universal lesson from the curriculum. All the kids are taking part. But then the students will each have a rotation around the room, and they could maybe, like during math time, there might be a math game station, which our new curriculum, by the way, we have a new math curriculum this year, Bridges Math, which I'm very excited about. I did a 2-day training with my staff, with our staffs, up at Dover the last 2 days of school last year, and it's an amazing program. But it comes with a lot of games, so there'll be a game station for practice. There'll be a more traditional practice station. There'll be then the opportunity for the teacher to sit down in leveled groups during his or her universal lesson time to either remediate or reteach or pre-teach or enrich for that group of kids. And that'll happen in the classroom with the classroom teacher who knows the children the best. And I personally believe, and I think I wrote it in my report, that the MTSS Field Guide said 80 to 85% of the students should be, universal instruction should be sufficient for 80 to 85% of the students. And what that means to me is that that's where we should focus as administrators, should be on that instruction and making sure it really does do that. Because I don't think in the past it has necessarily done that. And so if 17 out of 20 kids could be educated during that time, then it really makes less work for the academic support teachers who are paid for 2 things. One thing is to remediate sometimes with kids, or to enrich with kids. But the other part that I want them to be doing more of would be the coaching of the teachers and the modeling for teachers. So by actually hitting that mark with the universal instruction, we'll free up Jen McCusick's staff, our academic support staff, to do more coaching, which just gets us better and better and better. I can speak about the 2 buildings I was in last year. Our teachers are ripe for improvement. They really, I mean, when we talked about a new curriculum, they were just totally excited about it. And I think the reason why we made that choice, by the way, is because we were using Engage New York, and it was very language heavy. So if a child had either a disability or just a relative weakness in language, it impacted their math learning. And so what this new program is, you ought to see, my office is full of math games, math toys, math structures. Like you would not believe the amount of items that we have in there. Oh, thank you. Keep going. And our academic support teacher, Mike Kokorian, is going to come in. We just ordered today, using some REAP money, we ordered some tubs because there's so much gear that the teachers get out of this program in order to set up these stations. I'm really excited about that. We were early joiners for Foundations, and Foundations needed to work its way through the school. We started kindergarten and we've been working our way. It's a program for early literacy K to 3, and I believe we use it with fidelity at the schools I've been working in. I'm sure they do at Townsend as well. It's a pretty scripted program. The kids like it. It's pretty fun. Lindsay gives me an eye. I don't know if every kid likes it. It looks fun to me because there's a lot of parts of it that appeal to kids. But what I will say is that those kinds of programs really need to work their way through the school. And like Bob said, these past few years have really taken a bite out of not all kids, but some kids learning. I mean, we have some kids that were at home for a couple of years. We have some kids that were at school some of the time. We have some kids that whose lives were in such disarray that learning was a little bit harder. So and those were all possibly separate sets of kids that I just named. But what I look forward to is really getting back to a school year, we have a really fresh team of teachers, and I'm just really excited about it. Again, like I said, my focus this year is going to be with mentoring. I'm going to be talking about goals with teachers in a real way. I'm going to be talking about how are the kids learning. Let's go through your entire roster. Let's talk about all of these kids, because ultimately what we're trying to do is satisfy that mark. 80 to 85% of the kids will get what they need during that universal instruction. So the special educators and the academic support teachers outside of there can focus on just 15% instead of maybe 25%, which has been the case. I've got a lot of other things in there. I will say I took a lot of feedback from this class that I took this summer, and a lot of it was very, very positive. People were very nice. It was the spring of COVID, and people were very nice to us because they appreciated, I think, everything we've done. But I also got some really nice constructive feedback. And I'm going to be using that feedback to guide my work and to hopefully guide the work of all the people in my building this year. And I'm really excited for the school year. I'm also really excited for your work on long-term planning because I think that we're on the verge of change. And that change is going to be meaningful for the kids, for the adults, for the taxpayers, for all of us. And I know it's really hard work you guys are doing, but you should be very proud of yourselves because I think that we're going to end up with an outcome that's going to be good for everyone. Sorry I talked so long.
Thanks, Guy. Renee?
I think Emily has her hand up if she would like to go before me.
Not at all. I would love to have you finish this conversation. I'm enjoying it.
Okay. Okay, so I believe, maybe it's just not apparent, but in my approach to high quality instruction document, as I'm looking it over, there's new things in every category that I listed. So maybe it's just not knowing what is new. So increasing our intervention time from 30 minutes to 40 minutes allows for an intervention block to actually complete a full lesson because those schedules are back to back, so there's no transition time in between either. I personally have been designing and will be presenting and facilitating the 5 days of the literacy PD coming up for the district, me and 2 other AST teachers. And it's going to follow along the lines of what we've been doing with the math menu. So as far as a literacy menu, includes student choice, menu time, a mini lesson, a warm-up, just all those great instructional things that should be within a lesson. Ensuring that there's 90 minutes spent on literacy and not shortening those blocks. And that was part of why I revamped the schedule, because previous to that, teachers were only getting their specials time and wind block time at Townsend, and then they were allowed to fill in the rest. I have filled in the rest for them. A big change that I was expecting way more pushback than I actually got, so that was really positive. They're all open and willing to do that. Are there other specific questions, Lindsay, or anybody that you had about Townsend?
I didn't have anything specific other than I just really wanted to make sure that we were actively addressing the public's concerns and giving them something that they can hear and understand without having to weed through reports that may have some more technical jargon that they don't necessarily
Gotcha.
get as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the PD coming up. If a board member would love to pop in on the 25th or 26th at Dutton Gym, feel free. You can see how we run a district-wide training. It's pretty awesome. I'm not usually a very overly confident person, but I feel really good about it.
Could I add too that that the work that we're doing is really in concert. All of the principals, us elementary principals, are really working hard together this year, which is really going to be an improvement as well. I mean, we always have, but last year I was stretched pretty thin. We were one person shy, and it was harder, you know. And I just feel really confident in my teammates, Renee and Monica, and that we are going to work as a team. That we're going to share emails when we can and find efficiency so we can spend more time coaching and being in classrooms. And I think ultimately that's really what our job is to be around the children and around the teaching.
Thanks. Anything else, Renee?
I think, well, maybe one more thing, thinking about when I start to meet weekly with teachers, I sort of have a plan to, every other week we'll be looking at data and progress monitoring data from the students to see how they're making growth, if groups need to be adjusted, and then as well as, so then the other weeks there, we'll be checking in on the scope and sequences and the pacing of the curriculum to make sure that we're not falling too far behind.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Monica?
All right, so along with what everyone else has been saying, since Jamaica's a little bit smaller, a little bit different, I'm thinking of the high quality of education, like you see in my report, starting with the student engagement with the content. So that will be with the real world opportunities that we'll have this year and the experiential learning so that they can actually make connections to what they are doing. And then I also want to create that culture for learning. So we will do circle time, we will every single day and as classrooms, and then as the whole school on Fridays, and of course anytime, anybody's welcome to join us, parents and such. And that's to build our community and to be able to listen to others and also to be able to talk with others, because that's really important. That's really important, and to learn how to have empathy for others and to have those appreciations. And also, Renee will recognize this, you know, if you need to apologize or if you need to work something out. So we become that school community. And where I have equal access for all students, I would really like to see, no matter who you are going to start at your level. And what we will do is we will have different ways to measure that level, and one way being the benchmarks. And so our first benchmark is right away, the Ames Web, And so after we take that first one, everyone will actually look at their scores and they are going to track them somehow. Of course, it's going to look different from kindergarten to from a 5th grade, but they're going to understand where their strengths are, and we'll celebrate, and they will also need to understand where they need to work on some things, and set a goal and set a plan, and then keep working towards that goal and plan. So it will be like progress monitoring in a sense, but it's just being aware of what they need to do. And of course, assistance in making sense of the content. So that means that just let the kids know why they're learning something. What are they learning about? And put it in perspective for them. And we do have our new teacher, Tina, and so I will be assisting her, and I'm sure her mentor will be helping her with the instructional decisions. So I'll be right next door to her, and we will be working really, really close. And also that goes with preparing and supporting her. She's very, very open. I'm very open to learning new things in new ways. And we will have our rituals and routines established, and we will use our huge blocks of time to do what we need to do. So again, if anyone has any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Monica. Renee, before we move on to Emily, was there something you wanted to add to?
Please do Renee first.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, once I get comfortable, I don't stop. No, I had a couple things I also wanted to mention that I've learned through just some of my curriculum and instruction courses and things. A lot of people don't know that when you start a new initiative or a new curriculum, that it generally takes 5 years to see growth and progress. As well as when you first start, there will be a dip before you see an upcurve in growth. So just some interesting research to think about.
And since we have a new math program this year, I think that's what Renee might be alluding to. And I mean, I would expect, especially a lot of our tenured teachers, we won't see that dip because they can already internalize that. But there is, you know, when there is change, there is a room for that kind of move.
Thanks. Go ahead, Emily.
Thanks. First of all, thank you, Lindsay, for your question, and for the administrators for their responses, because that was really enlightening, and I really appreciated that. I am going to go way back to Principal Tebow's report. And Bob, I hope you don't mind me going back this far, but I had a quick question and mostly a comment. And it was about students representing on the board, the student body. And I have absolutely zero problem with your recommendation, so I want to put that right out up front. I trust your recommendation on this, but I just wanted to reiterate, I've had some opportunities recently to have conversations with students from the age of about 12 to 18 recently that were really in-depth conversations, and the feedback I get from them is absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful to our students and their voices, and I want to make absolutely certain that we are hearing from our student body. And so I'm certain that your plan is in place is going to do that. But I also just want to reiterate that making sure that there's a connection there between a student who may not be in the building and that you'll make that link so that students in the building will be given that voice at the board level from the student body. It's just our youth voice is critical to our future, and I can't stress it enough. And so I just wanted to be out there up front saying how important that was to me.
Yeah, and actually, thanks for teeing me up, Emily. One of the other new things we're doing this year is a highly intensive focus on student voice. As you guys know, the JEDI team work that they had been doing, we wanted to expand the student role in that, and so I'm going to mess the name up, Scotty. The collaboration Educational Services, is that the name of the group?
The
CES?
collaborative, they just go by the collaborative, I think.
Yeah, they are going to be working with 20 of our high school students to create an intergroup dialogue, which is really a training opportunity for kids to talk about challenging topics, in a manner that is, conducive to civil discourse. And I think there's, themes obviously around race and equity and things like that. But I think it's going to be more general as well, as they work with this cohort of kids who could eventually become, leaders in this field for us. And so I think there's 6 sessions, 2 hours each during the school day throughout the fall. So you'll be hearing more about that as that group winds down, and hopefully they'll be able to come and maybe do a report for you guys at the end to talk about what they've learned and what their next steps will be, because I'm sure there'll be something. In addition, we're also kicking off a monthly town hall session in-house, where we will be again with high school, and I think that will flow into middle school as well once we get it going, with different topics each month with a collection of students from advisories to meet with. And we're going to start out with the admin and the student council kind of co-facilitate that, with the hope that the student council will really take that over, and it will be students on students, and they'll be able to talk each month about an important issue in the school. We'll start off with an easy one. We'll start off with like food. And I was talking with Jake, the new food service guy, this morning, to give him a couple of weeks to get going, and then the kids can come and talk about what that experience has been like. And he'll come and listen, and it'll be for the adults to listen and for the kids to talk. So that kind of goes along with what you're talking about, Emily, and I couldn't agree more. I do think that Ruthie has her, with all the other things that she is engaged with personally in the school building, whether it's NHS, I think maybe Triumph too, as well as sports teams. I think she's going to be pretty well connected to the student body, even if she's taking classes at CCV. So I don't really worry about that with her in particular, but I do appreciate that's a real issue to be considering. So, but you'll hear more about the student voice initiative that we're rolling out this year.
If I could just restate, again, Bob, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I'd love to hear that. And I didn't want this in any way to be a reflection on Ruthie, because I know Ruthie will give us what we need to hear. But I just wanted to reiterate how important that student voice was to me and to all, and it should be to all of us. So thank you for that. And I'll just say one last thing. Sorry for dominating, but one last thing. As much as I think that I mentioned 12 to 18, you mentioned middle school, high school, but I also think elementary voice is important too. So I look at Monica and Renee and Scotty and say, first of all, thank you for listening to us and hearing from us and sharing your thoughts with us. But I hope that you will, while we can't ask young students to be on our board, because that would be way too much of a burden, but I really expect the voice of our students at that age level also to be brought back to us. So thank you so much for all you do. I really appreciate it. All of you.
Thanks, Emily.
So
Any other?
I have one more. Sorry. I was really glad to hear a lot of talk about measuring growth from all of our administrators. I think that we can all understand that, tracking proficiencies is important, but that's, saying, okay, well, this student ended the year on the rung 3 of a 4-rung ladder, so check mark, right? Like, that's great. But what if they started at rung 3, right? So that maybe wasn't so great of a year for that student. Or what if they started on the first rung and just barely missed that 3rd rung? Well, that's a huge achievement for that student. And we know that all students are coming from different places, and all students are learning at different paces. So I guess in relation to that growth conversation, I just would love to hear how specifically, what are we doing in our classrooms, and elementary and middle and high school, to really know that every student is growing at their maximum potential. It's one thing to say, like, yes, you've met these proficiencies and I see that you grew this much, so is it like I expect you to grow that much again? Or is it like, I think you actually have a little more in you? Or is it like, I guess if we could just expound on that a little bit. for the public in general? How are, I guess if I need to reiterate, how are we really knowing that every student is growing at their own personal best? And what are we doing to ensure that that happens?
Well, I could talk. Oh, go ahead, Renee.
Yeah, so we have basically, at least I can speak for Townsend because I ran those data meetings 3 times a year and put them together. We look at the entire class together. Special educator is invited, principal, classroom teacher, and academic support teachers. And we are mostly concerned with growth. I don't think there's ever a point where we're like, oh, this kid's good, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. There's definitely enrichment happening for students that have enrichment needs, but to be absolutely honest, our population, we don't really have a ton of enrichment students. I also think that staffing makes it very hard for us to provide enrichment small groups. So a lot of times that will land on the teacher, which is fine. They're expected to also differentiate and meet students' needs. We also have a really pretty robust academic system. I'm sorry, not academic, assessment system called the LCAS, Local Comprehensive Assessment System, that includes progress monitoring that shows us a growth trajectory for all students. And hopefully that data is being shared with parents. I know it is at Townsend. We send home those reports with report cards. We talk about them at student conferences. Academic support teachers and special educators attend those conferences as well. So yeah, that's just a variety of ways to help answer that question.
And I could add just briefly that we do the 3 benchmarks. Like I was really proud last year. The Ames Web system that we utilize ends up providing us with triangles with the 3 groups of kids, like tiers 1, 2, and 3, in both math and ELA. And we could see growth over the year with the September, January, and May benchmarks. And as I saw last year, even in the midst of COVID, the schools that I worked in looked really great in terms of the growth and the shrinking of the red, which is the kids that are in tier 3, and the growth of the green, which is the kids that are on grade level. So that is one thing that, and Renee's, we do the same system at all 3 schools where we have data meetings, and actually Jen McCusick has pretty much scripted those meetings for us, and her staff run the meetings. The principal is there to ensure fidelity. The classroom teacher is there, the special educator, the academic support teacher, and if there is a para that's involved with that group or involved with that classroom, we always include them. I'm sure they probably do at the other schools as well, just because that person oftentimes has a real intimate knowledge of the child as a learner. We go through every single child during that meeting, and we do that 3 times a year. The final result, the SBAC score, which is what you taught, like either a 3 or a 4 or a 2, those scores to me are much less telling of what happened during that school year. Because I could see, like you said, a kid that comes in as a 1 and grows to a 2.5, that is something. So we really try as much as we can, especially with the older kids, to really show them the data as well. A few of my teachers, that's a really big part of what they do, is they sit down in conference with the kids before they send home the report cards, which I think is really good, because one of the things that I think we all agree on is that kids that know that they're progressing, they get proud and they start to recognize that these patterns, these behaviors of mine are working, right? And we say that a lot to the kids. Look what you've done, So I think we really are. We are getting better at it, but I think we really have systems in place that are looking at growth in the elementaries. Monica, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you. So I would just like to say, again, Jamaica's a little bit different, and that's okay. But we are lucky to have small group instruction right now. So literally we can have, 2, 3, 4 students at the most with a teacher while folks are working on something else. And another way that we can measure this growth is to have spiral review in all areas, and to have multiple spiral reviews, just where you go back and you cover something that you've already covered, but you also give a sneak preview of something new that's down the road. So if somebody is successful or doing well in that sneak preview area, then you know to push it to the next step for them. And multiple opportunities in the classroom throughout the school year to show growth. And also being a multi-grade classroom, especially with 3 grade levels, and it does work the same way in 2 grade levels, is that you see what let's say a 3rd grader sees what a 5th grader, what their expectation is. Let's think about writing a paragraph. And so if a 3rd grader may want to strive to go up to that 5th grade standard, and because they see the example. And then let's say a 4th grader might be, in essence, working, at the 3rd grade level. They'll do the same thing. They'll see that example at the 5th grade, and so it will pull them up. People aren't pulled down, people are pulled up in the classrooms. And also we talked about enrichment a little bit. That always helps to just push that extra little bit and offer those opportunities. So let the kids have their voices, and if they feel safe, if they have their voice in the school, then they'll tell you that they're ready to move on or they need something more. So that's it.
Thanks, Monica. Bob, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the idea of measuring success based on a growth model is something that's been debated a lot in circles for sure. And, when even the AOE looks at how they display SBAC results and percent proficiency, even that's to Lindsay's point, like it'd be way more useful to have a percent improved a point or so, or some kind of percentile system for measuring the improvement would be much more useful to us, even on SBACs, but certainly from the other stuff as well. The other thing I just want to point out to the board, you guys understand this too, so as Lindsay describes, you get 3, and then, the end of the year, the end of next year, you get another 3. It might not mean you didn't improve. It might mean that you're in a different band and the standards are more challenging. So that's something to also consider, that we ramp up the level of these standards as the kids go, or they're on different standards. So in a 7th grade English class, for example, to end the year with a 2.9 as a score, and then to end the year at a 2.5 in 8th grade, doesn't necessarily mean the kid went backwards. The standards and the rigor went up, and so certainly you'd like to see the kids continue to improve on a numeric basis, but there's variables that are also included. I want to just mention, but yeah, no, she's right. The growth model is definitely a better way to measure it. It's challenging at the secondary level because you're in classes, and at the high school level you're in classes for 1 semester, and so even the benchmark assessments that we do with the younger high school kids, they take a math assessment in the fall. They might not even be in a math class. And so, then they may drop by the winter benchmark, but they still haven't been in a math class yet. Their math class might start at the end of January. So it's a little bit tougher to kind of put all that together. So we're looking for new ways to do that. We're very hopeful that our new AST teacher that we're going to have this year will help us think about that in a different way, because we really haven't had a lens through which to do that at the secondary level since I've been a secondary administrator. The elementary is where that stuff mostly happens, and we focus on success in courses. But I think that can shift because we are proficiency based, so the standards are what we're measuring. So I expect that to be looked at differently in the future.
Thanks, Bob. So I just want to say, great questions, Lindsay.
Yeah.
And everybody, and great answers. One thing as we're having this discussion, I think it's fantastic for us to see what is the highest potential for our students, right? Obviously, that needs to be a goal. And I think you've done a great job of explaining what you're doing, but it would not be fair if we didn't ask as a board, are we doing everything we can to support you? Is there anything you need from the board, any resources, any gaps that we could help with to achieve that goal?
I'll jump in, I'm not gonna just say throw money at it, because I don't necessarily think it's a financial issue, but I will say that, some of it is staffing. Like, so we went last year without an AST at Leland and Grand because we couldn't find someone. We're going into year 2 without a social worker for our district because we haven't been able to find one. Those things have a toll. It's nothing you can really do about those things. It's not like the board can magically create someone who wants to be a social worker. But those are the kinds of things we're still fighting with. And like the nurse opening that Scotty mentioned earlier, finding a nurse right now to staff, it's gonna be tough. But whenever you don't have people in those positions, there's an impact. And so, yeah, I don't know that it's not like we're asking you to hey, throw $100,000 at this problem and help us solve it. We just need you to know that sometimes some of these problems, like when we're talking about kids learning, if they can't be regulated in a classroom setting and we don't have a social worker to help with that, we have other people that can help too, but it's one less set of hands to help. So the learning might not reach its fullest potential because of some of those other, obstacles that the kids hit, and we don't have the staff to help meet them. So I just want to throw it out there. But I don't want to beg for money. It's not really what I meant. I want you to know the staffing piece can have implications.
No, that's helpful, Bob. I mean, you're right, and we can't wave a magic wand, but at least having that knowledge is good. Sorry, go ahead.
Just to be clear, these are positions that have been funded that we can't fill. So
Yes.
It's not that we didn't put them in. They're funded, there's just no people.
That's exactly what it is.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's correct. And we're not alone, as you, I'm sure, read, nationally and statewide. I mean, one of our neighboring districts has a elementary school that's down 3 special educators, which is not that big of a school. So they're worrying about how they're going to be compliant. So I mean, so we're lucky in a lot of ways, but not being fully staffed, even though the money's there, is still a challenge.
Thanks, Bob.
I would just say, I piggyback on Bob, definitely staffing. But if we were thinking about new positions that we could incorporate, ensuring that we have some academic support that are strictly enrichment, and perhaps some instructional coaches for the district that were trained in enrichment as well would probably be very helpful. But yes, I know staffing is very hard. It's when you have 3 applicants for a classroom teacher job, it's pretty shocking. So
Thanks, Renee. That's helpful. So, I mean, we can certainly ask the administration about that. So that sounds like those are some things that are above and beyond. And I know we talk a lot about enrichment. And so, yeah, I would say the administration's not here, but they will see this and hear this. So, yeah, let's, is that fair?
Absolutely.
Let's see, what does that mean? What are the implications?
Yeah.
With the understanding that most of the others are things that are already funded. We just can't get staffing.
Can I ask you a question with that?
In a few minutes, you absolutely can.
Just to wholeheartedly agree with Renee, with you, Al, that yes, I think that we as a district need to put just as much urgency on a child who's ahead of the curve as we do a child who's a little behind the curve. And I don't think that we should be striving for mediocre. I think we should be striving for growth. And so I'm all for that.
Here.
I was going to say that one thing you guys could do would be to continue to ask questions like that. What can the board do? Because I think what that does, is it tells the public and it tells possible applicants that this is a place that is supported, that our schools are supported by our elected officials. And I think that says a lot. And I've got to say, I have excellent teachers this year, and I was down 2 of my 6 classroom teachers, and I hired 2 incredible people, and I think that's because of the vibe we send out, and that is your doing. So I think that's one thing that we can definitely continue. I agree with Bob and Renee. I think that enrichment would be a great thing to get some real expertise in, some local expertise, hire someone. I also think that just by, I think that getting the public more involved in the schools, which was a big push of yours last spring, and I've got to say that was, during, we were in the midst of all of that, but you guys were pushing us to get and I think that is exactly what we need to do to push kids forward, is get their parents involved, and that is something that we can do, that I'm already empowered to do. But I think that those are things that you guys are already doing that make people come together and unite and around the children, and I think that's the most important thing for these kids.
Thanks, Scotty. So administrators, we will task Bill and team with trying to find that out, but if there are any emails, communication you want to have with the administration to kind of further elaborate on what you're talking about, I think that would be great. And yeah, I piggyback on that. We are here as the board to support you, to ultimately support the outcome for our students. So appreciate
thank you. We appreciate it a lot, and I think I think the public appreciates that, us working together. So.
Great. All right. It was a great conversation. Anything else before we move on?
Just thank you for putting up with my million questions. I do want you to know that I think that you're all doing really great. I just really want to make sure we're having the conversations as openly and often as possible.
Thanks, Lindsay. All right, moving on to approving the financials. Anybody?
All right. I was waiting for Joe to jump, and I got it.
Okay.
Oh, I can, okay, go ahead. I was gonna say, before we do that one, we never actually voted on the minutes, Al.
Oh.
Yeah, we didn't.
No, the motion was made and seconded.
There was a motion in the second, and then.
And then no one can hear.
Yeah, but then Peter.
We're doing a lot tonight. Well, hey, thank you, Joe. Before we do another motion, let's wrap that one up. All right, all those in favor.
Well, the minutes say you did.
Oh, okay.
That's all that matters.
Oh, the minute taker's a liar. Let's go to the video tape.
All right.
Just an old guy. Bad, move on.
It
All right, here we go.
One guy to another. Maybe I forgot.
No, I think you're right, Joe.
So where are
All
we
right,
at?
all those in favor say aye. We'll start with those out in Zoom land. Emily.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Anybody I'm missing? No, I can just get a thumbs up in here. Anybody? All right, unanimously passes. Thank you, Joe.
The minutes were right the whole time.
Yeah.
After all.
Oh, man. All right, approving the financials.
Okay, I make a motion to approve voucher number 6 for the total of $4,241.04. And approve the voucher number 7 for $1,076,579.16.
I'll second that.
Can I ask you to send me that or say it again?
The first voucher was $4,241.04. And voucher number 7 was $1,076,579.16.
And to be clear, the first voucher was number 6,
Six,
right? 6
yeah.
and then 7. Okay.
Yeah, 1,760,000, what?
No.
No. $1,076,579.16.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I guess I'm closer to the mic.
076577916.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was gonna just flash it on the camera.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor, Zoomland?
Aye.
Aye.
And out here? Aye. All right. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Long-term planning update. Had a great meeting. So we had, Les gave a thorough review of our mission, process, and findings. And then we went into, we had a few items we wanted to discuss and take action on. First one was whether the West River Education District should maintain one approved high school and which high school education is provided for its resident students. And we unanimously said yes on that. Second one was, we actually had to, I think, slightly amend this second one. We were going to ask for a feasibility study, but we instead asked for the viability of a feasibility study because we wanted to know the cost, kind of important before we jump into a feasibility study. And then finally, we did want more information regarding elementary schools coming to the next meeting before we make any decisions on whether we want to, or which of the choices we wanted to adopt for elementary schools going into the next year. Is there anything I missed? No. All right. Very good. All right, so I apologize. We're a little late on the agenda, but we will still allot 30 minutes for public comment. And we don't have too many folks, so last time we had given 1 minute. We can bump that up to 2 minutes for public comment. And I believe you had already wanted to speak, Erin, so.
Yeah, with the questions or from what they asked for, what you asked, what you could help with the open positions that the school district's still looking for. Are you offering training for those positions? Is that, so like if somebody doesn't necessarily has the background in it, but has the skills for it, are you guys advertising that to train them and get them either certified for a counselor or a nurse or any of that? Because like the new wave of hiring is now based on skills versus experience. So are you guys looking at doing something like that and putting that out there as a public knowledge? That you would offer training for those positions?
Bob's waving at you.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, there are some positions that you can definitely get provisional licensure for people who are, close to or are, in search of the full training. And, obviously the district through the master agreement has the ability for teachers who end up getting hired with a provisional to access some funds to do that training. So yeah, that's something that's been commonplace. It was a rarity years ago. Now it's becoming more commonplace. There are certain positions that you can't do that for. And like a school nurse, for example, they have to have at least minimally licensed as a nurse in the state of Vermont through the Department of Health. And I think special educators you also can't get emergency licenses for. But most places you can. And the school, we've done that before. To support people, but our situation is such that there are oftentimes not a single candidate. And I just reposted the social worker, and it's been posted since the spring, and there was not a single candidate who applied. So we reposted it, trying to figure if we can get a fresh look at it, and we've posted multiple places. But yeah, so anyways, I hope that answers that question.
I had a conversation with, I should stop.
Yeah, Renee has her hand up. Go ahead, Renee.
I was just going to mention that, so our Townsend's new first grade teacher is actually, I helped her get through like the emergency licensure on the Vermont AOE. So it's something that we do help people with, but I think maybe you have a good point though. I don't believe that's included in like our postings. It's kind of something that if you're pursuing the career, you sort of have to do your own research. So maybe, area for growth is to put those things on our postings from now on. So thanks for the feedback.
That's good.
Real quickly, I had a conversation with Bill, our superintendent, when I didn't have a single applicant for my grade 1 position. And I was getting really, we all get antsy when it's July. And And one of the things we decided we were going to do, if I didn't have anyone in a couple of weeks, is that I was going to make a specific ad that said, "Are you looking for a change in career? You know, do you have an undergraduate degree? Are you interested in?" Because I know that, you know, we just from living, you know, a lot of people that are unhappy in their work, that have an undergrad, that are great with kids, you know. So we started really getting creative like that, because but with nursing you can't really get creative. You know, someone needs to be a nurse, and I wish it were otherwise, because we are. It's a big. The nursing staff has really been taxed over the last 3 years. It's been really hard, as you guys are all aware, and they've worked so hard. So we're trying to properly staff so we can have a year where they're being school nurses.
Do they have to be a nurse? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, so any other, does that answer your?
Yes, that answers my question.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dana.
I was just wondering, I mean, we see it in the hospital setting where if you don't have enough nurses, you have med techs, paramedics that work, you know, side by side to fill in those holes where nurses are slim. Like Drew, paramedic.
We're not giving up any paramedics.
How about just one? Come on, Drew.
Feeder program? No.
But I was just wondering, think a little outside the box.
Well, I think Bob answered the question. I think it needs to be a licensed person.
Yeah.
Well, med tech would be licensed, but not that type of license.
All right, we are taking a public comment time. Anybody else out there in the public? All right, going once, going twice. That will conclude our public comment period. Okay, thank you, back on schedule. So we did add a couple items to new business. Electric bus update, if we could start with that. Joe, you want to kick it off, or do we want to?
I know both Mike and Paul are here, and they've had conversations that I was not part of with the provider. So one of them would know more than I do.
I could start, or well, Paul, it's up to you. Me and Paul and recently Joe have been on this trail for a couple of years. So I must say, this opportunity that we have in front of us now, I'm very sure will not occur again in my lifetime. We need to apply for this clean school bus program by August 19th. We're really in a rush to have all of your approval to get this done. The potential of the grant, if selected, is 5 Type C school buses, which are the large ones. It's $375K a piece. The potential worth is $1.875 million, and this does not incur any expense to the school budget or paying in advance. This money is paid directly to the suppliers from the EPA grant. There's also $100 worth of infrastructure contributions, and eventually 40,000 plus fuel savings a year for the school system. So the selection date would be on October 2022. The payment request for submittal is October 2022 to April of 2023. And the fourth stage of it is completion would be in October of 2024, at which point we would have received the buses, installed the infrastructure, and replaced the old buses with the submitted buses. What we need to do to get through this application is, number one, is it time for electric school buses in the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union? That's the question number one. Understanding that the potential of this is far beyond anything that will occur again in my lifetime, I'm sure. And do we want to apply for the 2022 Clean Bus Program? In doing so, we'll need two things. One, a POC for the application, which is potentially Liz Francesi, I believe is how you pronounce her name, and the quantity of 5 VIN numbers for buses to exchange eventually in coming years. And that point of contact could potentially be Greg Frost. So I guess I turn this over to Paul for his thoughts, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Mike. See your hand, Paul.
There we go. All right. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Paul.
And so I'll try to be brief. I know you've had a long meeting and so forth, and a lot of details that Mike very skillfully went over. But where we are right now is that this grant deadline is August 19th. And what we're here tonight for is for the board to make a decision to designate someone. Now, Mike mentioned Liz as a point of contact, and let me just describe that a little bit. In order to submit the application, the EPA application, the EPA needs sort of a reference point. Now, Liz has what we call a SAM.gov ID. And there may be other people in the district who have that. Mike just mentioned her because Greg originally passed on the application to her thinking that she could do it, but she had to bow out and toss the application to Lori Garland, who was really swamped. So in order for the EPA to review this is how critical this is. In order for the EPA to review this, they need someone who is part of this SAM.gov registration. Now, I know that Wyndham Central Supervisory Union is a part of that. It's nothing arcane or obsolete. As Mike said, Liz has that ID. She could be designated a person. And the other piece of information that is vital to submitting the application is, as Mike said, the VIN numbers from West River Transportation. And neither Greg nor Liz has to do anything else to submit the application, nor does the board. And in preparing for this meeting, Joe raised the questions about how we had contact with West River Transportation, who's going to be operating the system and so forth. And those are all good questions, but frankly, they don't really need to be addressed right now unless we get the buses, unless we get the money for the grant. And as Mike mentioned, the scheduling of that will take some time. And in that time, that's when we would tackle those questions that Joe raised. And if they can't be resolved, I mean, if we can't figure out a way for us to utilize the money for the grant, then we just don't accept it. But there's no real, I mean, we have skin in the game as far as making the application, but if we were awarded the grant, if we can't resolve the issue between the private contractor servicing the district, then we just don't have to take the money. But so it's really critical that we try to get the board to formalize this and take a step, because Mike and I cannot say to either Greg or Liz or anybody in the district office, you have to be the point of contact. And we have tried to contact Todd to try to get the VIN numbers, but he's been difficult to contact. So I was going to stop and ask if anyone had questions during the process, but I just got a little carried away. Does anyone have questions on what I said or what Mike said?
What's the time commitment for this person that would be the point of contact between now and August 19th? because I agree, they are absolutely swamped right now. Is it a 5 minutes? Yeah, here's my sam.gov number. Here's the application, have at it.
And we already have the sam.gov numbers, and yeah, that's all we need is a nod from you folks to have her be part of that. And filling out the form is something that we can completely do on our own with your approval. And also getting the VIN numbers will be something that I know Greg has been working on as well, but he probably needs a little bit of a push from the board to, yeah, let's get this done. Just one last thing, Emily had mentioned, well, let's investigate this the last time we were on with you. Paul and I have spent a couple of years on this project already, and South Burlington already has electric buses, and Sean McKenzie has invited the board members or any of us up to see his operation. He happened to use Highland Electric. They are I think as we go forward, you'll be very pleased with their service. They go from the pole to the bus, and they guarantee the bus will be available each morning for the children. So there's no administration of who's going to install the infrastructure. They connect with Green Mountain Power. All of this can be part of further knowledge that can be garnered from South Burlington, who has gone this path in the past.
Thanks, Mike.
But what we really need now is just to get the application in. And if we decide during the coming year that we don't want to do this, then we'll just reject the application.
Okay, I got a couple hands. Emily and then Joe.
Thanks. So thank you for the South Burlington report, Mike, because I had heard about South Burlington and the success there. You've heard me say it before, I'm in strong support of us moving in this direction. It just seems feasible for us on so many levels. And it appears to be low risk because we can walk out of it. So while I had hoped that there would have been, at this meeting, I would have hoped there would have been a conversation with West River Transportation, my recollection was that if West River Transportation wasn't interested, there were other opportunities for us to find other avenues. So to me, moving forward with this makes total sense. I see zero reason to not do it. And I just want to thank everyone, Paul, Mike, everyone behind you, Joe, for investigating this and looking into this. And I really support moving forward with this process. See if it will work for us in our state.
Thanks, Emily. Joe?
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
So all we need then is essentially a motion from the board to move forward with the completion of the whatever EPA bus priority application. And then once the board if that motion were to pass, then administration can designate a point of contact and get the VIN numbers. And Highland is the vendor that we've identified that made the most sense to go with this. And my recollection from the last meeting I was at with Highland was that they would do the application for us. So all we need to give them is names. And they also were going to reach out to West River because they had a contact there. Did that fail as well?
Well, I guess what we had decided was we were going to hold to see if, the board was going to go ahead with that. We can certainly call Highland and have them connect with Todd because this particular person who works for Highland now has sold bird buses to
right.
Todd.
I was in that conversation,
yes,
and he was going to do that. We're out of time to call Highland and see if he'll do that. I mean, we either make a motion tonight or this goes away, I'm afraid.
Well,
Paul?
in addition
Paul, sorry.
to the board
Sorry, could you just, I apologize, we're having a little back and forth. If we could just raise hands, that'd be great. But go ahead, Paul, and then I've got Lori.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go
I'm
ahead, Paul, and then Lori.
Okay. In addition to what Joe said tonight, the board either approving going forward with the application and then choosing to designate someone as the point of contact and then choosing to designate someone to get the VIN numbers, that's really all the board has to do tonight. Regarding Highland, why Highland, we haven't used Highland to contact West River is because we thought through Greg, who we had approached 3 weeks ago, Greg was tasked or said he was going to get the VIN numbers for us, and we're still waiting for them. So I guess in answer to your question, Joe, about why Highland hasn't contacted West River, we thought we would try to go inside since Greg is familiar with them, but apparently he's been busy with the other things that in his activity. So that's where we are.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Go ahead, Lori.
So a little late to the party here about this conversation. It couldn't be at a worse time for the business office to, as Emily knows, we have the statistical report that is due by the 15th by statute for 6 districts. And, they're really, other than giving you a DUNS number, which that's easy to do, there is really nobody in my office that can do this application. And it looks like with a quick click and, cursory look, it's more than just a VIN number that needs to be entered into this application. Certainly we have the SAM.gov sign on, but we do not have all that information. Mileage, VIN number, there's several things that need to be filled out. It's not just a quick turn it around in an hour, and we simply can't do it right now this week. And I don't remember if the deadline is the 15th or if it's the week after.
19th. Go ahead, Paul.
Good points, Lori. We know it's not just the VIN numbers, it's the mileage, the gross vehicle weight, but the stat sheet for that was given to Greg 3 weeks ago. And when I met with him, he said he could get all of that information. So I realized at this point, yeah, it's not just the VIN numbers, and sorry if we're just, it seems like it's just the VIN numbers. There is more information than that. But Greg did seem to think that was, those were numbers that he could obtain.
If I could just ask a follow-up question,
Yep.
Al, if that would be all right.
Yeah.
And so it sounds to me like we do not have a confirmation from West River to proceed with this project. Is that correct?
We have not heard from West River. We have not heard yes or no from them.
So if we do be able to slip all this in and do this and they say no, then you're back to ground zero? Like what is the plan B if they say no? I guess that's what
I'm not, so if they say no to what?
To getting rid of all their buses and accepting these buses, these electric buses. Because they have to sell a bus to get a bus, right?
Well, the process, they have to trade in a bus. So, and that process does not have, that's not contingent on the application. They don't have to make any decision about any buses at this point. We don't know if we're going to be awarded the grant. So the opportunity, the thought process would be to apply for the grant and then begin, an earnest conversation with West River. If we only got the money for one bus and West River was willing to trade in one bus, that would be a starting point. But we don't really need to they don't need to make that decision. We understand that's too difficult a decision to make at this point. But we just want the opportunity to explore that. And as Mike said, the schedule, I mean, the actually awarding of the grant is going to take time, the processing of the money and so forth. So any conversations with West River has a time frame of at least a year to try to implement a bus if that's possible.
But Paul, didn't you
So
say
what-
that we need to have the VIN numbers by the 19th? We need 5 VIN numbers, and we need this application filled out by the 19th, correct?
Correct.
So if West River is not willing to play ball, we don't have
Well,
5 VIN numbers.
Yeah, if they don't want to provide that information, then that's game over as far as the application. So that's where we are.
Go ahead, Larry.
I guess my final question would be that the application, I mean, I just really took 2 minutes to look at it to see, what it entailed. What I didn't see or dig deep enough is that I know that there is a stipulation about a 5-year contract that you need to have signed. That is not part of the application. You do not need that. You've read the application process fully, and you don't need that before applying. Is that true?
To my understanding, it is. Mike, can you weigh in on
I
that?
believe that's correct.
Okay.
And as far as the, all the other data, mileage, we know exactly how far the buses go, how many stops they make, all of that we got from Greg last year to kind of determine how many miles, how much fuel, all of that, and the gross weight of the vehicles is common knowledge from Thomas websites. So I believe we have everything we need to go forward, except the VIN numbers, and in that case, I don't believe it would take a lot of your time.
I think it probably wouldn't take that much time, and I could probably do it before the 19th or on the 19th. But I would want one of you to come in and sit down with me and go through the application and have all of that data ready to be input.
We would take the form and fill it completely out, and just walk you through it to get it into the system.
Okay.
Does that work, Larry?
Yeah, it won't be, like I said, until the 18th or 19th next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be fair of us to make a motion if you don't have the resources or the ability to do it.
It's just a really bad time of year.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Sorry, go ahead, Drew.
I'm still.
Lloyd, thanks.
Paul,
can I just weigh in?
1 second, Paul. We got a question.
Yeah.
I'm still really uncomfortable with us pledging a private business's assets against a grant, and we haven't spoken to the business owner.
Yes.
So we're not saying we will come up with certain assets. We are identifying them by VIN number. So and we haven't heard from the person that owns the assets that we are pledging as part of a grant. Does that not feel uncomfortable to everybody else? Because
Well, and if we can't get them, we can't go forward anyway.
Right.
well,
Yeah.
right. So, but Todd hasn't said it's even okay for us to use the VIN numbers for his assets.
They are not ours to do.
They're not our, they're not our assets. We can't. So, like Todd should be on the screen saying, yeah, I'm in. And then I'd feel really good about moving forward. But where's the owner?
It sounds like he's been very hard to reach.
Well, this wasn't even, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It also wasn't even warned as a specific item on the agenda tonight. There was no invite to Todd or any representative from West River. And it is, someone else's assets by VIN. Even if he was agreeable, that's then, I would assume, possibly locking in those specific buses to be the ones trading in, which I don't know how many he owns. I think it's more than 5. But maybe there's some that would be more on the readily trade-in first versus others. We don't know that.
Getting into what happens after we get the grant. And we'll have 12 months to decide all of that if we decide to take the grant. And then a year later before we finish the project. So you look at the 2024, October 2024, by the time this is done. So what we're asking here today is just to get the application in. Obviously, there'd be a tacit agreement on Todd's point, on Todd's part, if he gives us the VIN numbers. If he doesn't give us the VIN numbers, that's a tacit disagreement on whether he wants to go forward. And as far as I know, he only has a 1-year contract, so I don't know where we would, no, okay, that's not true, okay, then great.
So Paul and Mike, say we went
Can I-
forward.
Before you ask
Okay.
that question, can I just respond to Drew's comment?
Go ahead.
And was it Laura? No, not Lori.
Leanne.
Leanne,
Leanne, right, sorry, Leanne.
been a few years.
So those are all good points, and I can understand the hesitancy in moving forward and pledging an asset through a VIN number, how that creates an uncomfortable situation. We had hoped that we wouldn't have gotten to this point, that we would have had contact with Todd before. As we said before, I'll just say it again, we have really tried to reach out to Todd to try to include him in the process so that we wouldn't get to this point now where we're trying to submit an application. And I still agree that there's time to contact him and find out if he's willing to see if we can get an application, see if we can be awarded a grant. And by offering his VIN numbers, he's not saying that he's going to do it. He's not committing himself to doing it. We're just seeing about the possibility. But I think that contacting him would be the best way to move forward in the remaining time that we have left.
Go, Larry.
I just texted Greg. Todd's been on vacation and he won't be back until potentially Monday, and so that's when Greg was going to see him.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
So,
All right, any other questions from the board before?
Yeah.
After you, yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah. Duh.
Yeah, so if we were to go along, like make a motion that would assume some agreement from West River Transportation, if they did not agree, does that kill the application, or would there be would there be a chance to contract with another company if we were awarded the grant and they weren't interested?
Well, if we had.
I think we're locked in with the VIN
anyone
number.
else is- Yeah, obviously we need the VIN number. I don't know what other VIN numbers are available for us if we can't use the ones from West River Transportation. So if the VIN numbers cannot be obtained, then the application can't be submitted, and that's that. I don't think that at this point there's another company that we could contact that would be willing to, that creates more problems.
I think I would look into the idea of submitting it without the VIN numbers, because I believe what the EPA is trying to do is understand what buses are out there that will be taken off of the rolls. And by VIN number, it's the year they were manufactured and whether or not they were submitted as improvements after 2011, all of that. I think they're looking for data more than they are the exact VIN numbers, because I don't believe that putting a VIN number in that block right now will be the VIN number that's given in 2024. I mean, that, it just doesn't make sense to me, but I would be willing to look deeper into that to some of the sources that I have to see if not submitting the VIN numbers will negate the application. So that would be fallback B.
So I guess my question is, because I do agree with, obviously Drew's point of, we don't own those assets, but could we move forward provisionally tonight to give the authorization, and then if West River's on board, they're on board, and we go forward, and if they're not, we don't? You know, so that they're not waiting on us, right? So that the board would have would have given.
To go through the application
Yeah,
process.
to go through the
if
process,
West River's
if
a
West
willing
River's.
willing party.
A willing partner or whatever.
Yeah. Go, Lori.
We have a 5-year contract with West River, so there is not the opportunity to go with another company to use these buses. So for 5 years, anyway. Contracts can be broken, but that would be very, very, very costly. So would probably negate any savings that the electric buses would generate. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
And when did that 5-year contract start?
This year, before we knew anything about electric buses.
Go ahead, Emily.
Peter Gomorick has had his hand up too. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but.
I did, and I was going to hold him for public questions at the end, and once the board is exhausted.
Okay.
Go ahead, Emily.
Thanks. So, once again, I'm not actually hearing much different than the last time we had this meeting, and had a conversation about this. I hear Lori, I understand the challenges that, the SU office, the financial office has. I totally agree with that. But if this application can move forward, we should be making sure we're having a conversation with Todd, who has been on vacation, we just found out. So I'm sorry that it didn't happen before he went on vacation. I would have thought it would have happened. It didn't. It needs to. I think we need to investigate this to the full extent that we possibly can, because it actually will make financial sense to do it in the end. And if we can collaborate with a local business to bring in brand new buses for them at no cost to them or us, then we should be looking at that. This might not work. I understand that. And now that I'm hearing this feedback, at first I thought we could go with another company. We were told that. Now it sounds like we can't. We have a 5-year contract, and we're not gonna alter that. But if we can collaborate with West River District, we should try. So we have 2 volunteers who are in this meeting who seem to be pretty interested in doing this. If they are, and Lori says by the end of the deadline, she may be able to do it. If the answers can happen by then, she could help with the final application. So we could potentially make a motion, given those parameters around it, and there are a lot of reasons why it may not happen, but there are possibilities that it could happen. We could move forward with that in mind. And so, Lori, again, I look to you because I have deep respect for the work you do and the schedule that you're holding. And if you say it's impossible, then I get that. But I didn't hear that from you. It's just that you need a lot of pre-work done before it comes to your desk. And so let's see if we can get that done.
Thanks, Emily. All right, if we have heard everything from the board, I will move to Peter, but let me know. Anybody else? No? All right, go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. I'd like to just share that I had 20 years experience working with a three-letter federal agency and dealing with their grants. And that generally speaking, the preliminary application is a fairly straightforward process, but they usually follow that up with a 200-page list of documents and other caveats and conditions. And there will be, I think, a lot more work than just the initial application going into this. And I think we also have to look, or I think it's prudent to look at what's the life expectancy of the asset purchased. How does that match up with the grant application and the agency's expectations of how long it will live? I found that they quite often use national averages, and a snowplow, for example, will last a lot longer in Virginia than it does in northern Maine. And sometimes the expectations are realistic and sometimes they're unrealistic. So I think that that's something that needs to be considered in part of the process as well, as to what's the overhead and burden on obtaining, managing, and doing all the other paperwork that the agencies require is sometimes daunting. And I think that needs to be considered at the outset here.
Thanks, Peter. Great insight. Appreciate it. Okay. Emily, I think you had started to craft a motion. Did you want to make that motion?
So I would need help from Lori and you to make the motion, but I did want to say one other thing, that what Peter just said brings me to the thought that I don't want to put Joe on the spot, but Joe has been a liaison with the board through this process. And if Joe is willing, I think it would make sense for someone on the board to work with Paul and Mike to make sure that we get questions answered. I think there could be a liaison on the board, should be a liaison on the board to help guide through this process, to make sure that the conversation, the questions that somebody like Peter just brought up get answered ahead of time.
Happy to do that.
Joe's coughing and saying, sure, but I did put him on the spot, and he has more insight into this than any of us.
No, I'm happy to do that, and I've been in meetings with a couple of different bus companies, and both of them have said they have huge, robust departments that will help us in every step of the way, hold our hand, write the grant for us. All we got to do is feed them a little information, yada, yada, yada. Now, that's probably not as true as they'd like us to believe, but I do think there's some external support for us in terms of, the heavy lifting of that. At least that's the hope. And they're both giving us the same kind of promises for that sort of hope. So, I believe there's probably some grain of truth to it. But I would be happy to be a liaison for the board and help with that.
Thanks, John. Go ahead, Lori.
So I'm really glad Peter brought that up, because this initial application will be simple, and as long as I have the information, I have the support, then I will be able to get it done by the 19th. But I guess that, it leads me to the next question of then the next, set of applications and paperwork that needs to be done. I have over 15 years of managing grants for WCSU, and it's not free money. The ESSER funds are drowning us right now because of, how much money came in and what it can be used for, and the stipulations around it, which they actually have very little stipulations, but it's still paperwork for every expense. There's, payroll, AP that is affected. So I just want to caution that, I can't, unless I am directed by my supervisor, I can't commit my office to manage past this without some additional help. And I don't have a lot of experience with the EPA grants, which can be, more complicated or less. I am not sure. Most of our grants are federal through the Agency of Education. So I just want to put that out there, that it's, Peter is right, that it does become more complicated. And if we have the support, that's fine, but that's, hours on the phone on hold for the EPA expert. I don't have time for that kind of thing. So I just want to throw that out there to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Lori. Good, Emily.
So again, the last thing I want to do is put any extra burden, and I know everything we talked to the business office about is an extra burden, but that's not what I'm trying to do. It's one of the reasons why I suggested we have a board member be a liaison, because a board member is much more aware of the burdens on the SU business office. And certainly Bill should be involved with some of this conversation as well. Again, a motion from us tonight, in my mind, does not make a commitment. But I think with a deadline that is looming, it would behoove us to at least try to move forward to see if we can address this. And Lori just brought up a really good question along with, on the heels of Peter. What is the long range commitment on this? And West River may be asking the same things and getting the same questions and not satisfied with the answers and won't do it anyway. So that's possible, but I think we should consider moving forward to investigate.
Is that a motion, Emily?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, I don't know how you want this worded, because I'm trying very hard to be cautious about what we make a commitment to, but I'd be happy to make a motion for us to appoint Joe Winrick as a liaison from the board to investigate moving forward with, Joe, what am I suggesting we move forward with?
The EPA electric bus grant process. And I think we're past investigating and we're just moving forward. If we don't complete the grant process by the deadline, it goes away. But I mean, that gives us the authority to, reach out and say, we're gonna do this, designate this point of contact, and if we have to provide 5 histories of buses that we're gonna trade, we can at least say, this is what we need and why.
So, the reason I put investigate was because the conversation has not happened yet with West River. And that was the only reason why I said that word in there. But if you're comfortable with that being part of the process, I mean, it sounds like it can't move forward without West River. Right.
That is my understanding. I can, either way you want to word the motion, I'll second it, but as long as investigate gives the motion the authority to complete and submit this thing if we get it done by the deadline.
So making a motion to complete the
initial application?
That's correct.
Good word.
Complete the, thank you, Maury, this is what I need, somebody to help. Yeah. The motion to direct Joe to represent the board in completing the initial
EPA
grant?
Application.
Yeah.
2022 Clean Bus Program application.
There you go.
If at all possible.
And Joe, you seconded?
I will second that. And now Peter wants us to tell him what he actually
Yeah.
said. Right?
I love words like contingent upon collaboration with WRT, for example. I'll say no more.
Can you read it back, Peter? Just make sure we...
I'm just trying to piece it together. Appoint Joe Winrich as liaison to facilitate the initial EPA electronic bus grant application, contingent upon blah, blah, blah. So if WRT doesn't go through with it, you're off.
Right, we're skunked without it.
That's fine.
Contingent upon West River
They're
providing.
Collaboration with
Participation by West River Transportation.
participation.
Does that, could I ask a quick question? Does that leave it open for, if they don't want to be involved, but we can leave the VIN numbers blank, does that leave that possibility still, or that can't happen anyway because we're in a 5-year
It
contract?
eliminates that
Yeah, done.
possibility.
All or nothing, done. All right, motion second. Any discussion?
Who was the second?
That was Joe.
I was.
Thank you.
So the final motion is nothing happens unless West River agrees to it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I say something?
Please, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
This would feel a lot better if Todd was 100% involved in this. It would. I'd just like to know and think about how this might sour our working relationship with him if we go ahead with this. I mean, Todd
That's why we
knows-
made it contingent on West River Transportation being involved.
Yeah, Todd knows about this. He knows
Does
about
he?
it. He does. People have talked to him about the electric bus thing. And he knows about it. Him not being here or being like going forward and talking to us and showing up at our board meeting should give you an inclination that he ain't really interested in it.
Well, then it dies here.
He may not come out and want to say anything because he's afraid of what the working relationship will be with us. I mean, I'm not really too cool with making a decision on his assets without him at least being 100% here saying, yes, here they are. So
He's got veto power, right?
yeah, but how's he gonna feel when he comes back from his vacation and realize we made a decision? Hey, Todd, we decided we want to put out your assets on the thing. And then, he's gonna say, hell no, or hell yeah. But he's gonna be kind of like, well, why didn't you talk to me in the beginning? Why didn't we have this conversation?
I think folks have reached out to him or attempted to reach out to him. I mean, I'm sure Paul and Mike can talk about many stories of attempting to reach out to him,
and he's avoided them, maybe for a reason.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at it another way though, right? I mean, he's not gonna have to pay money to replace his buses.
No.
Right? So that's I would think that would be substantial savings to him to improve his infrastructure. I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, I think you're right, it'd be better if he was here, but if he's not here, I don't see the harm in us voting to let it go forward, knowing that it lives or dies with his approval.
I don't know. I just feel like a little disrespectful when I do it.
Go ahead, Emily. And then Joe.
So I just want to say there is absolutely zero disrespect on my part to West River Transportation. I have known Todd my whole life and totally respect his opinion about this. I have no knowledge that he has been ignoring us on this in any way. No one has said that to me. All I've heard is that he's been on vacation. I trust him to make a decision whether it's financially feasible or in any other way feasible for his company. And if he says no, I do not hold that against him, and I deeply respect the long-term relationship we've had with West River Transportation, and I want it to continue. So I want to lay that right out on the line, first of all, number one. I also don't think that motion in any form binds anybody if West River Transportation is unwilling to move forward with this because it doesn't make sense for them. That's what Peter suggested we put contingent on West River Transportation collaboration, and I agreed to that because I think that that's really important. So please don't misunderstand that this is any way going around Todd and his business. It's not. So,
Thanks, Emily. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Emily. I don't know this gentleman, but he has every right to run his business. What this does for me and how I would present this for him is that, what you said, Dana, is he knows about this. People have talked to him about this, but that's, in the grocery store in the aisle at the riverbed. This is an official overture from the board saying we would like to do this and we need your help and cooperation. And if you're not interested, then we can't do it without you. But like right now, even if he's been approached, it hasn't been by the board, it's been by a task force of electric bus folks who, you know, he doesn't necessarily know, or they have no authority or power, or, you know, who created this and what are they an arm of and all of that. This is the board officially saying that we're interested in doing this with him and would he like to participate. We can't end run around him. This won't change the relationship, nor is it in any way threatening or anything like that. It's just now it's an official board thing versus you'd heard about it before.
Thanks, Joe. Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, sorry, forgot to lower it.
Oh, okay. Lindsay, and then Chris.
I would just say that I feel like this is something I could support by saying, just to make it really clear that if this is something that Todd feels is good for his business, I would love to provide this to him. Mm-hmm. If it's something he does not feel is good for his business, then that's all his choice to make. And if our passing this allows him to do a thing that is good for his business and happens to be good for our environment or all these things, then great. But I see this as giving him the ability to choose or deny as he sees fit what is best for his business. It just provides the opportunity if it happens to be a good fit. And if not, cool.
Thanks, Lindsay. Chris?
I'm just wondering if any board member has reached out to Todd or anybody in the SU office. Like,
I think it's been a task force.
no.
Well, I mean,
So it's just been the task force?
well, Greg might have had some communication because he knew he was on vacation and when he's coming back,
Right,
so.
right. That's true. Yeah. I would assume so, but don't know for sure. Yeah. Good question.
Mike's got his hand up.
Mike?
Yeah, we have made several attempts through Greg as well to sit down, but I just offer that he may have those same questions that I know that he had 2 years ago. And we'd be willing to sit with him and answer those and have a discussion about that, including Highland Electric, who knows him at a personal business level.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Anything else, or are we ready to take a vote? Anybody? All right. All right, so we'll go one by one on this one. How do you vote, Emily?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
I think we just out there. Lindsay?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I will vote in favor as well. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Lori, if you're still, yes, there you are, Lori. Very much.
And thank you, Joe.
And Joe, yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to after-school program. I believe Dana? you can
Yeah,
talk about
so we got the laughter program, that's the after-school program, right? Okay. Is there any way we could start looking at the before and after school care program other than LAFTA? Just down the road, we were talking of future long-term planning, is it?
We would love to see early care as well.
Yeah.
The ability for families to drop a kid off before, because people gotta get to work.
and tie it in with the after. Maybe some kids don't want to get involved in the laughter program, but they could be latchkey kids or something. Was that right? Yeah, latchkey kids. Yeah, I was a latchkey kid, so I just thinking that, you know, that we provide good thing with the laughter program, but maybe not everybody's so interested in what's offered.
How early do you think? What are you thinking? 7 o'clock?
Yeah, reasonable, I mean.
7 a.m.?
I would, and for me, if you don't mind me jumping in.
Jump.
I would, how that early care looks could be any number of things, and it may be as simple as adjusting staffing schedules so that somebody is there to receive kids. It does not even need to be like, we're providing some wonderful rigorous thing that happens at 7 a.m. It can be like, shh, read a book quiet. Like, it doesn't need to be, it literally is.
A long breakfast.
Right, it's a safe place for a kid whose parents have to work. I know personally of families that have both left our district over this, inability to get their kids to school and get to work on time. And I also know families who have gone to extreme lengths of like driving to the very farthest bus stop to drop a kid off, so the kid has to ride the bus for, you know, an hour or whatever every morning, just so that parents can get to work. Anyway, I feel like we can do better, and I would love to have some kind of proposal. Dana, I'm totally gonna like plow you over here.
No.
Would you like to say this?
Because we've all talked about this,
had this
and
conversation.
you flow better with your words than I do. But the whole idea, I mean, the laughter program is great and it's awesome. And then we've had trouble making sure it would keep it funded. And if we had something more than just that, we could sell it to everybody.
Can I add one thing that's
Please.
what's sort of caused us to bring this back up and try and get it in motion once again is actually I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a parent with a child in the district, and she was just notified by her child care provider that they would no longer be able to provide before and after care, which is what she had been depending on. So I don't even know what's available in our general vicinity for parents as options other than pretty much nothing.
Nothing.
So we would like to ask the administration to devise some kind of system in which each school would have the ability to have kids come in at 7 o'clock.
And then with laughter now,
Doesn't have
5
to
days a
be
week.
enrichment or anything like that.
We're
Just
just looking for
somebody there to
supervision.
supervise
Safe.
safely and.
Safe place. And now that laughter, thank you. I'm so happy to hear that the laughter program is now 5 days a week until, is it 5:30?
I think it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's hugely helpful to families. It's been a need for a long time, so thank you.
Is busing with that?
There is no after busing.
Right, that's
Okay.
what.
Sorry, one second. Emily, go ahead.
Sorry. It was my understanding that we were offering that for pre-K a few years ago. Is that true? And if so, is that still happening?
I don't have a pre-K at my school.
Yeah, I can answer that question, Emily. I'm working with Lori Garland to figure out finances around it. I have a parent a parent who is interested in being the lead teacher, and then I've reached out to Terry at the high school about a couple high school students possibly. So it's in the works, hopefully.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Good question. And I think it gets back to what we had asked earlier about what resources can we provide to you to help facilitate things. So yeah, that's good. Go
I
ahead.
just want to clarify that my intention is for elementary age children for this. I don't know that 6th graders need to be dropped off at 7 o'clock necessarily. Just for clarification.
Good point. Elementary.
And
Yeah.
I would say that just to keep in mind that there and I don't know the rules, but there probably are rules about how many kids and how much staff, number one. And number two is that if it's gonna be offered by the districts, it's offered to everyone. So that means that if there are children with one-on-one support, that we would need to hire somebody to come in and support them one-on-one after they get dropped off too. So those are just possible things that could come up. And I'm not sure about that, but those are just things that are in my head.
Do you know how that
Great
works
point.
with laughter? The one-on-one thing with laughter?
Yeah, it works that way.
They're
Yep.
same as, okay.
Yep.
That's a great point, Scott.
So it's just something to think about. I love the idea, and I think that my families would all, well, not all, a lot of them would benefit from that. And I see people waiting out in front of my building at 8 o'clock in their car to drop off as soon as possible to get to work, and I see people picking up the same way. And I know how hard it is. I have 4 kids myself.
Particularly at Newbrook, because Newbrook is later, a later start even than the other schools.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
So I wanted to, I had a concern when I read the letter about the laughter program, so I reached out to Bill. And no, I'll fully admit, nobody's raised this to me, but it's just my natural thought was I noticed that we're busing the students from Townsend to Jamaica, and I'm wondering how many parents, if we have more kids in Townsend, I mean, I definitely want something for Jamaica, but if we have more kids in Townsend, do we really want to pay to bus them, and then are their parents gonna wanna drive there to pick them up? So I'm wondering how that affects the health of the program. So when I reached out to Bill, he said that the decision was made based on the time of the end of the school day and the extra play area. But it is a concern to me because I'm just not sure how many parents are going to want to make that extra drive. You know,
But I could be wrong, but I have to look at the letter again, but I don't think it's exclusively said Townsend to Jamaica. It could be
I think
either
it did.
way, right?
Huh?
I think it's
They get choice.
2 sites, one at Newbrook and one at Jamaica.
Yeah.
I thought you got to
Right, 2 sites, one
decide.
at Jamaica and one at New, oh, okay.
You
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
to choose.
You can choose either one, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I
Fair
was
enough.
like, go now, but
I know
decide.
when Jamaica didn't have the laughter program, they had to go to Wardsboro.
Yeah.
And there was some issue, there was lack of participation. I think.
Well, that was my concern, but
Yeah.
if they can
Yeah.
choose either one, then that's fine.
Yeah, okay, good, Lindsay.
That was my question.
Yeah,
That was-
okay.
We're good. That was my question.
Okay, at least that's what I thought I remembered reading in the letter, so.
Yeah,
As long as-
2 spots.
as long as
Yeah,
families-
I think it was a choice. Okay. All right, great. So what I take out of this, we're asking the administration to look at providing in each of our elementary schools 7 a.m. arrival.
Drop off.
Yep.
Drop off. Fair? Okay. All right, that's what we're asking now.
Start with the before and then we'll work on the later.
Okay. All right, appreciate it.
One end of the day.
All right, that's it. We covered our new stuff. The last thing we have on the agenda is the executive session that we talked about. So at this point, we will, Scotty, for all those who want to, we will put you in the waiting room with the exception of board members and Bob. And we'll let you back in after we've heard and come out.
You gotta make the
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah, sorry.
Would somebody like me to start doing that right now?
Hold on 1 second. So we actually have to make 2 motions. So the first motion is, I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the academic records or suspension or discipline of students would put the board at substantial disadvantage because the board would be in violation of publicly disclosing confidential student records. So that's motion number 1. I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Wait,
Thank you. All right, motion number 2. I make a motion for the board to enter executive session under Title I, Section 313 of the Vermont statutes for discussion of academic records or suspension.
Lost audio.
Lost
Yeah.
audio?
I know what he's saying because I have it in front of me, but
Me too.
Can you hear us now? No?
No.
you texting him?
yep.
We can hear you.
Oh, they're back.
You're back.
Hey, all right.
We can hear you.
We can hear you the whole time.
We knew what your motion was because we were following it on paper.
All right, let me try that again. Peter, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah,
Okay, thank
we
you.
got the motion. Who moved it? Who seconded number 2?
I moved it and Lindsay
Yep.
seconded it.
That
Did
was
you hear
number
the?
one.
Did you, and you heard the rest of that? Passed unanimously? You got that?
Yes.
Okay. And the second one is, I make a motion for the board to enter executive session under Title I, Section 313 of the Vermont statutes for discussion of academic records or suspension or discipline of students.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. Did you get that? Mike seconded? All those in favor
Yes.
say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. We are now moving into executive session.